Welcome to Sales Bites by Journey, where we talk about everything you need to know to be a killer at sales. I'm your host, Will Jenkins. Let's get it. Hello, and welcome to Sales Bites by Journey. Today we have Sherman Barnes, Vice President of Sales at Bennett Motor Express. Sherman, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate the invite.
Awesome, man. I had the pleasure of meeting you like quite a lot of my other internet friends on LinkedIn, and it's been really cool to get to know you the last couple of years. So excited to have you come on here and talk a little bit about your sales experience, man. We really appreciate the time.
Yeah, I'm excited as well. Looking forward to the conversation.
Beautiful. So before we get started, we'd like to start with a fun fact. So what do you have for us, man? Give us a fun fact.
A fun fact is that I have 6 children. I have 4 boys and 2 girls. So that's most people got 1 or 2. I have 6. So that's a fun fact.
Man, that's awesome. And that is also more motivation to be very good at sales. So respect.
100%. 100%.
Absolutely, man. So you can familiarize our listeners with your background real quick. Would you mind giving us a 10,000 foot overview of your career, some of the stuff that you've done in transportation?
Absolutely. So I joined C.H. Robinson in 2005. So I was with them for 4 years doing domestic truckload, flatbed. I went to UPS. I did air ocean custom brokerage there. I was a vice president at Schneider National. I was in Green Bay for about 4 or 5 years. So I've been with Bennett now, I'd say about 3 years that I've moved down to Dallas. So again, nice. I've seen a lot, and love to share more as we go through the course of the conversation.
Awesome, man. Well, you've got, a wealth of experience at some of the best and top brokerages in the space, some large players, and have had some great conversations. So we're going to dive in here and talk a little bit about enterprise sales. We had lunch almost a year ago. Well, maybe it was probably less than a year ago now, but we were in the West Loop, and yeah, it's funny, just like kind of out of coincidence, but we were talking about enterprise sales a little bit. And when I thought about this topic, I was like, man, we got to get Sherman on here because you seem to have a passion for going after some of the larger, best opportunities in terms of volume and things like that. So tell us how you do it, man.
So for me, I'm consistently prospecting at all times. I mean, so at a high level, what you want to do is determine, what does your freight network look like? What are your areas of expertise? What is it that you have to offer to customers? So for example, at Bennett, we're heavy flatbed, step deck, and heavy haul. We do offer truckload, but I do not lead with truckload. I lead with flatbed because that's a natural area of inclination that we have. Secondly, I'm very familiar with our freight network, where we're strongest at, where we're weakest at. So we're strong in the Southeast, the Southwest, Midwest. So if I meet someone and they're in have freight in Wyoming, South Dakota, North Dakota, that's not a good area for me. So I don't try to force fit that. I try to basically find out what are the types of companies that we've done business with in the past, and that gives me a persona, if you will, of the type of clientele that would be we find suitable to engage with in the future. So at a high level, that's how I look at it and how I approach the business development work from a lead generation perspective.
Totally. So was just looking at some coursework that we have on buyer personas. I think that's really important, has to be huge, and it is huge on the enterprise side. So talk to me a little bit about how you use those buyer personas to move an opportunity forward in the larger, multi-billion-dollar annual revenue shipper space.
Yeah, so it's several different personas depending on. Now, remember, I've been in the business since 2005. So you have Dale Carnegie training, you have situational sales negotiation training. I've been the challenger sales model. It's different models that you can use. But in essence, what you're trying to determine is, who are the decision makers? And on average, I'm hearing that it's 6 to 7 people now that are making decisions whenever you're engaged with a customer. So who are those 6 decision makers? What are their incentives? What are their KPIs? What are the things that they're responsible for? And knowing that, I know how to approach each of those individuals to give them what they want so that I can get whatever it is that I want. So some people are focused, as an example, from a procurement perspective. Their objective is to lower costs. What is what I am offering? How is they going to lower the total landed cost for their business? That's what they want to know. there may be someone else that's trying to get promoted. So they want to bring you in to outline some initiative or whatnot that they're trying to do for their company. So I need to know what that is. I'm always on LinkedIn as you are, and I'm always researching to see what are some of the inclinations or what are some of the things like they'll tell you a lot about themselves online. So I do a lot of research as I'm engaging with potential clients before I even reach out. So I know what sports teams they're into. I know, did they go to college? Did they not go to college? What's anything that I can ascertain to help me understand what role that person has. I develop a map, or we develop a map on that company profile, each person that we think is on that 6-person team on average that we've said that are making decisions about who to use, and we map out a strategy on how to go for each one of them. And so sometimes it's code engagement from LinkedIn. I use Zoom Info personally. I know you have some people that use Seamless AI and other tools. LinkedIn Sales Navigator is so many different ways to engage with clients, but being active on LinkedIn is definitely a primary way, because when I reach out, people already know who I am. They're a little bit more familiar. I can engage them initially as I move the deals forward.
Awesome, man. So when you think about enterprise sales versus mid-market or SMB, what would you say you've noticed in your career is different in the sales process or your approach to close one of those larger opportunities versus maybe a smaller or a mid-sized opportunity?
Yeah, so middle market to small companies, there may be one decision maker or a person of influence. So maybe it's 3 people supposedly, but there's really one person that you have to convince, and so you have to identify who that person is, and be able to sell to them and convince them to work with you. And so that's definitely one thing that I noticed. A second thing that I noticed, and I want to be careful how I say this, is that when you're dealing with really large clientele, they have a sophisticated procurement process that you have to adhere to, and you have to understand that piece of it. So when I left from going to a large, some large companies, sometimes to go into a smaller transportation company, that so let's say I left UPS and I went to a smaller company, I had to learn how to re-engage with different customers, because the larger customers, they have a formal procurement process, a formal team, legal processes, things that you have to do. So there's no one person that I can, hey, if I get to know Will Jenkins, they're going to let me in the Dollar General. That's not how that would work.
Right.
I mean, but with the smaller to medium size, I may be able to meet Will Jenkins again at an airport or in a meeting, set up a meeting.
Yeah.
Next 2 weeks, whatever, I can get off the ground and rolling. So that's definitely something that's a little bit different from my perspective. I would also say that they're wiser. They're working with almost as much data as you're working with, because they did hire people like Sherman Barnes, people like Will Jenkins, who come from the freight industry, and they hired them to be in their supply chain logistics division. So they know some of the secrets or some of the data and different information. And so they're wise. So you may not be able to get as much margin from a larger customer, but rightfully so. I get it, because they have
Sure.
like 10 times the volume. But with a smaller company to a middle-sized company, I'm not saying they're not smart. That's not what I mean. I just mean there's fewer people involved in the decision making, and they are not working with as much data as a Target would, as a Walmart would, or any of those companies.
You just dropped some really, really helpful, really good information just from, being in the space for as long as you have and selling to so many different types of companies. I think sophistication of procurement is a massive differentiator for an enterprise customer versus an SMB or mid-market customer. You can try to force that fit as much as you want, but you need to get through contracting, and then you need to get an opportunity for an RFP, and then you need to get an award, right? Those are significantly different opportunities.
And then the award has to fulfill.
Yeah.
We said we were going to see 100 loads a week. We're seeing 20 loads a week. So you have to be able to engage in that as well.
So what advice would you give to someone who is new to an enterprise sales cycle that, let's just say it was yourself at, a younger stage or earlier stage in your career selling to enterprise customers? What advice would you give to them? Because it's a different animal, man. You got to be ready to rock. It's a whole different game.
I would say educate yourself on the business, not only on your business and your capability, but also on that customer. There are countless articles, countless information, little tidbits that you can take from the internet. Did they recently acquire a company? Listen to their quarterly review, a quarterly call. Are they growing? Are they shrinking? Their CEO and their CFO is going to outline unique opportunities and unique challenges within that particular organization. And so you can use that information as you're engaging with that particular client. They're letting you know essentially where they're going, what they're thinking, what their challenges are. And so I would definitely do that. The second thing I would do, I would partner with a more seasoned seller or a more seasoned leader within the company that you're engaged with. So let's say that you work at a transportation company and there are some guys that have been there 15 years, 20 years, and maybe they're not in sales, maybe they're in operations, but I would bring that person along within those conversations because they're going to be able to see things that you can't see and see around corners as you're doing call preparations or whatnot. They'll be able to help you with that. So I actually saw on LinkedIn today, Nolan mentioned that from Nolan Transportation about bringing a seasoned veteran along with you if you're a younger seller. And I definitely did that when I was younger because I didn't know what I didn't know. And so bringing them in helped to further establish credibility with the client since I was so young.
I love that because I think some of the best relationships you'll build will be internal. And
Yes.
it's easier if you can use some stories from someone. There could be just an absolute rock star in operations that's seen all the ins and outs of a Dollar General. They know scheduling, they understand seasonality, they know how they work with different types of ship, everything, right? The whole deal. Now those are your stories. And so it's going to make it easier for you to work through that and seem like you know what's going on. And then they, like you said, add credibility. So I love that. That's an underrated tip right there in terms of using your resources and the organization.
100%.
All right. So I took a ton of notes. This was really good. I want to highlight a couple and then see if you have any others to add before we wrap up. So you mentioned consistently prospecting, getting familiar with your company's strengths. So you sell to where the strengths are because it makes it easier for you to convert those lanes. Very big into buyer personas. So who are those people? What are their KPIs, their metrics, their focuses? There's a lot of people in the buying process of an enterprise sales cycle. So you need to be able to familiarize yourself with all of them. Enterprise companies are sophisticated, way more in-depth procurement process. So you have to be ready to sell with data and understand what's going on there, and then use your internal resources to become more well-versed with accounts. So anything else that you would say is or has been helpful for you selling to enterprise customers?
In selling to enterprise customers, again, bringing the operations person in, sometimes at a certain point in the sale, I may bring in legal, to push the contract through. I'll bring in legal, and what I would try to do is bring in the teams from legal, from the customer, and my legal team, so that they can talk the same language. Because otherwise, it's like two parents. My mom and dad been married 45 years, and when I was little, it's like, well, go tell your mom this, and then I go tell her, she's like, what? Well, go back and tell him this. It's like, you know what? Let me get these people in a room so that they can make a decision. Because what you're really trying to do in sales is continue to move things through the funnel. You're trying to continually move things through the funnel. And any challenge to that, I try to obliterate it by putting the people together. Then I try to put operations together. I'm in sales. I don't want to oversell something. I don't want to say I can do something that we can't do. So let my engineering ops brain people talk to their engineering ops brain people. During the startup process, there needs to be a startup call, right? So we know in those things, but even before that, it just depends on where we are in the structure of the deal. Sometimes I bring those people in earlier. Sometimes I bring them in later. It just kind of depends. So that's another thought too, is to really lean not only on this one operations person that can help you initially in the sale, but lean on your team and bring them in. Don't be scared to let them talk to one another, because if you bring smart people together from both companies, you guys can really create some beautiful solutions together.
Awesome, man. Well, we really appreciate your time here today on Sales Bites. Incredible information. Excited to be able to get this to everyone to listen to, man. Thank you very much for joining us, Sherman.
Thank you so much for having me, and excited for your journey, man. Literally, pun intended.
Love it, man. Thank you very much. Appreciate you.
All right, take care.